So when it comes to the controller, what do you feel the challenges still remain in terms of fully immersing someone and having controls that fit with that?
I don't think anyone has really cracked the code in terms of VR input yet. If you look at technologies like Kinect or Leap Motion or the Razer Hydra, none of them were really designed with VR in mind, where latency is this huge challenge. You do want to look down and you want to see your hands and you want to be able to interact with the world in more natural ways. So I do think there's still a huge amount of research and basically R&D left to do. For us, we've been researching input for a really long time. It's one of the areas we're really passionate about. We think it's one of those key missing pieces for a full VR system, right? You really can't have the holodeck unless you can actually interact with it. So, we'll see what happens in the industry, but there's a lot of smart people working on the problem, both inside and outside of Oculus, and I think it's another area where we're going to see VR move super fast.
We're seeing mobile devices exponentially advance almost every 6 months now. What role do you feel mobile will play in the future of VR?
I think that ultimately we're going to see more of mobile and what we call PC VR today, like higher end VR. We're going to see those two align and really collide. But in the near term, VR, the types of experiences you can have on a PC system with such significantly more horsepower, especially on the GPU side, is something really special. On mobile, you can even today have some really cool VR experiences, but it's just scratching the surface of what's possible. I think everyone agrees, though, that in the long term, you want to have an untethered VR device that can, fit in your pocket, that you can put on anywhere, and have sort of VR on the go anytime. And that is ultimately going to probably be powered by a mobile chipset and down the road in the future. And I think to really make VR ubiquitous, where you have billions of users connected in virtual reality, it's going to have to be an untethered mobile device.
How do you see headsets evolving to become less hindrance, especially for the more mainstream acceptance you were just referencing?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were just saying, where the form factor has to be significantly smaller and lighter. I think untethering the device, which gets into huge complications around battery power and heat and thermal. There's still a lot of challenges to be solved. And when we talk about, sunglasses VR, which has always been sort of the dream, we're still decades away from that. But that is, I think, where you need to get to for VR, again, to be this ubiquitous technology where everyone has a VR device. And, that's what we want to deliver in the long term.
There's people I've had conversations with that don't necessarily follow VR closely, but when I say VR to them, it's almost like they've been burned before multiple times. Well, what do you feel differentiates what's going on now from anything that's happened in the past?
I think the big thing now separating VR, this VR revolution from the past, is really that the technology is finally ready. And it is absolutely one of those things where even I and a lot of the Oculus team came into VR thinking, VR's never worked, it's never going to work, we've been burned before, should we be investing time in this now? And I think it's that moment when you look through the Rift, and it's not it's not the holodeck that we've all been promised since we were kids, but you look through the Rift and you're like, oh my God, this thing kind of works, and you see that glimpse of the future, and you know right away that it does finally work. And I think that's one of the main things we're here at Gamescom doing, is showing people where we are with the technology. And VR is one of those things you just have to see to believe. And once you see it, and people take it off with this huge smile on their face, and they're like, "That's awesome." And it's that experience that really separates it from the VR revolutions of the past.